He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast View, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi, and the state of Mississippi for that matter, a better place to live, work, and play. Hey, before we start our show today, I posted at the Ricky Matthews Coast View Facebook page today something I want to get your help with. What I'm looking for are bright young people who are doing extraordinary things, young people who are inspiring others. You know, they could be a musician, a songwriter, a leader in the community. Even someone sent me a note this morning about this cool race car driver who's 17 years old, who's won a bunch of races, and you know, that's the kind of story I want to start to share. I want to begin to focus a little bit more on young people and share their stories. So if you know a really, really interesting and inspiring young person, go to either the SuperTalk Gulf Coast Facebook page and let us know, or you can go to my Facebook page, Ricky Matthews Coast View, and I'd love to hear about it. So now today we've got a terrific guest. We've got Sean Tyndall, who's the Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner, and he's really new to the show. New to the position. He's got a great past. He's a Gulfport native and someone I've really been looking forward to having a conversation with. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Ricky.
So I assume you're in Jackson today, huh?
I am. Been up here all week, and it's been kind of fun. I brought my 12-year-old with me, and he's been shadowing me this week, and he's glad with the decision Dad made to join the Department of Public Safety. He's enjoyed seeing all the big guys walk around with firearms on their sides.
Well, good for him. Well, you're a good family man. We'll get into all that before we get done with our conversation today. But you were appointed by the governor on May the 20th this year. You serve at the pleasure of the governor, and you assumed office on June the 1st. So, 6 weeks roughly you've been in the position now. So you've been drinking from a fire hose, haven't you?
It's been a lot. I'd handled their budget in the Senate, so I knew it was a large organization, but I guess until I got here, I'd forgotten exactly how many divisions it had and how many different bureaus that it oversaw. And
I think Sean, when people think about the Department of Public Safety, they tend to think about the Highway Patrol, which is obviously part of it. But I'll just run through the list real quick. Mississippi Highway Patrol, Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, Driver's License Services. We're going to talk about that one. Homeland Security, Public Safety and Planning, Mississippi Law Enforcement Officer Training Academy, the Mississippi Crime Lab, the Mississippi Examiner's Office, and Crime Stoppers. Wow, that's a lot to say grace over.
It is, and it's a lot, and a lot of. It's centralized on law enforcement, but there's also, when you start getting into the crime lab and driver's license services, there's things that go beyond law enforcement that require a lot of attention.
So I know. Look. We'll get it again. We're going to get into some specifics as we get into this, but right out the bat, you went in as a man on a mission as it relates to the driver's license situation. I know that COVID situation complicates it, but I've always been amazed with all the customer service and technology capabilities that are out there that we never saw the Driver's License Bureau really embrace the latest customer service excellence programs that could really serve the community. There's always been so much frustration in that area across the state. So what's your thoughts on improving that?
Well, one I would say that, over the years, things have kind of changed. It used to be when you and I got our driver's license, we went when we were 15, got a driver's license, did a test, and then we left. Now, you got to get a learner's permit, then you got to get a intermediate license. People can get their firearm permits there. Sexual offenders register there. So there's a lot more things going on at driver's license services. And, I think the tendency was we've always just done it this way. Let's keep doing it this way. Yes, add these additional services, but we'll just keep doing it the way we've been doing it. And it finally caught up to them. And long lines, and especially with the real ID requirements, everybody having to bring new information just to renew. next thing we knew, we had lines wrapped around the buildings. And so one of the things that we've really been looking at is bringing in technology. We should have an online reservation system coming up in September. We're going to start allowing online renewals for firearm permits. Same thing for the sexual offender registries. So we got a lot of things in the works that I think are going to improve when people have to come in person, the experience that they do have.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good to hear. I know you're really focused on it. I know that was one of your major goals. Again, we'll get into some of the other heavyweight stuff as we get into the conversation, but let's kind of start from the beginning. You know, where did your inspiration come from for public service?
You know, there was a number of things, but I can tell you, I guess a turning point in my life was I was my first year of law school. I just completed that first year. I had a job lined up to work in Jackson, and my dad, who lived on the coast, passed away. And so I decided that summer, instead of living and working in Jackson, I would come home to the coast and be with my grandparents. And I didn't have any jobs lined up. And if you're in law school during that first year, you try to do as good as you can, then you try to line a job up for the summer. An internship. And so although I had one in Jackson, I didn't have anything lined up on the coast. And I came down there and I interviewed for several jobs, but they were already full. And I went and met with Kono Carana, who was the DA at the time. And he told me he would bring me in, let me work as an intern for the summer. And I remember asking him, well, how much can you pay me? And he just chuckled and said, no, you get the experience and I'm not going to pay you anything. I said, okay, well, having no other options, that's what I did. And I had an MBA and an undergrad degree in finance, and so I was always focused on business law that first year. And I came into the DA's office, worked with a guy named Scott Lusk and Mark Ward over in the Biloxi office. And I got to tell you, I just fell in love with being a prosecutor. I mean, I knew right then that I was going to go back and shift my focus and try to take some courses that would gear me towards being an assistant DA. And so I think at that point it kind of started clicking that I could do this and make really good money, or I could find some career paths that they gave me a little more fulfillment personally, and that's why I ended up going that route. And so I think that was kind of a key moment. And I can tell you, I think throughout my life I've just been one of those people that have always wanted to be involved. You know, yeah.
So Sean, how old were you? How old were you when your dad died?
That was 1999. So I was 26 years old.
Yeah, my father died when I was 21, and I describe it similar to the way that you did. It was kind of a turning point in my life. I reevaluated a lot, and you reach everyone in their lives reaches these forks in the road. I talk about it on my show from time to time, where you have a choice to make, and one of the things I decided to do, literally at that moment in my life, was to make him proud. And I just focused on that. And I worked harder than I've ever worked in my life to kind of rebuild my education and do things in my life that would really make him proud. I guess you had the same kind of thought, huh?
I did. And my dad had a lot of issues. I mean, he was a 100% disabled veteran, and he had PTSD issues and alcoholism, and had lived with my grandparents for all my life, really. And so we were close, but also, I guess growing up and the way I grew up, my dad lived with my grandparents. Papa was a lineman for Mississippi Power. Mama was a school teacher, and then on the other side of the family, I had my mom who grew up on a dairy farm in Stone County, and my stepdad who was pretty well off, had made good money and been successful. So I had all these different influences in my life, and I think that realization to me was that you didn't have to have money to be happy. I saw folks with money, I saw folks without money, and I saw folks in the middle class, and we just the money was a back factor. Happiness was the key factor. So.
Yeah, money does not buy happiness. I'm convinced of it. I know some pretty wealthy people who are quite miserable, and I know some people who don't have a pot to pee in, and they're happy as they can be. It's all about perspective. But
I think when you approach it that way in life, you can have a public servant's heart. It makes it easier to say, I want to be a public servant. And, when you look at it that way.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you had those early experiences, but I think probably that opportunity to work in Kona's office was really a huge fork in the road for you.
Oh, it was a key point because I was very naive to politics. I was very naive to government. I mean, I did not grow up in a very political family. I remember the first time I met the mayor, I thought I'd met the King of England. I mean, that was a big deal to meet the mayor of Gulfport. So, I was so far outside the political realm, even though I was interested in it, I really didn't understand it. And so that was a key turning point to be able to start working with supervisors, working with other elected officials, and working with law enforcement. And having that fulfillment. I tell folks, that was the best job you could have as a lawyer, was being a prosecutor.
Let's do this. This is Sean Tyndall, the new Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner. And when we come back from the break, we'll continue to sort of go down his track that led him to this position. We'll be back after this break.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast. The Dean's List with Janice Dean.
A compassionate young man who became a dinner companion for a stranger makes today's Dean's List. Lisa Mealander and her family had been eating at the Eaton Park in Belle Vernon, Pennsylvania, when she noticed how her server was interacting with a senior patron. The server, Dylan Teetle, had dropped to one knee so he could give his full attention to the gentleman. Lisa wrote on Facebook, the man apologized for not hearing well, and he talked about how he lost his hearing during the war. He was 91 years old with many stories to tell, and Dylan patiently listened, giving him his full attention. He also helped the man figure out a meal from the menu before putting the order into the kitchen. Lisa tried to flag Dylan down so she could offer to pay for the man's meal. Dylan said someone else had already taken care of the check. Before leaving her table, Lisa snapped pictures of Dylan chatting with the senior and published them to Facebook, where they have been since shared thousands of times. Thank you, Dylan, for your kindness, and Lisa for sharing this story with all of us. Janice Dean, Fox News.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. Staying informed is a full-time job, even more so during an election year. That's why SuperTalk is here. With Fox News, News Mississippi, and the Super Talkers, you'll go inside the campaigns, and we'll separate what's real from what's not to bring you the latest information that matters. From now until you go into the voting booth on November 3rd, your election headquarters is Super Talk, Mississippi. Available on the Super Talk app and at supertalk.fm. From the Gallo Radio Show archives.
In the house, Mike Hurst.
When I started at the end of 2017, sadly, our office had gotten so low during the last administration. I think in FY16, we prosecuted 11 illegal immigration cases, 11, which is embarrassing. First year I was there, we had jumped almost 700% to 77 prosecutions. And Paul, that number I think is going to increase very much more this year. We are continuing to see illegal immigration impact crime around the state. I'll give you a perfect example. About a month ago, we prosecuted an illegal alien who had brought 9 kilos of heroin and 1 kilo of fentanyl through our state. Now, to give your listeners an idea of what 2.2 pounds of fentanyl will do, that will wipe out 1 million people, Paul. That'll wipe out 1/3 of our state.
This has been another Gallo Radio Show audio archive. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Sean Tyndall, the new Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner. We're going to get into a lot of what he's learning about what that role entails these days. But before we do that, I wanted to really get into his life story. And when we went to the break, we were talking about going to work for the district attorney, Kona Karana, and his team, and how that really opened your eyes to public service. You went to work for a bigger law firm on the coast, and then eventually started your own law firm. And so talk a little bit about those experiences and how that began to prepare you for running for senator. You were first appointed, and then the Senate. Oh, actually, you ran for Senate to begin with. You were appointed to the Court of Appeals, of course. But talk about the experience you got as a lawyer and how that's kind of set the stage for you.
Well, and so what happened, I was at the district attorney's office, and I ran for county prosecutor in Harrison County in 2007. And I ended up losing that race to Herman Cox, who's still the county prosecutor, very good friend of mine. And it was a close race. It was 51-49. And I think people saw at that point that I was willing to get out and work and run hard and run a fair campaign. And and the way I handled it when I lost, I think caught people's attention that I did it the right way. But when I made the decision to run, Konu said, you can't work here if you're running for public office. So I had to step down, and I ran for that position, ended up losing, and I was hired at Page, Menino, Perisic, and McDermott, and Ron Perisic offered me a job, and he was another big influence. I mean, he's very political savvy, been involved in a lot of different political campaigns, and run a very successful law firm there on the coast for a number of years. And so that was a great learning experience working along with him. I mean, he was a tremendous mentor. And after I did that for about 5 years, I, of course, got elected to the Senate during that time, and they were very supportive of me doing that and really appreciated them affording me the opportunity to do that. But I, talking to Ron one day, I said, look, you didn't get where you are by having somebody else's name on the front door. And, I want to, I admire you a lot, and I want to follow in your tracks, but I'm not going to do it if I don't go somewhere and put my own name on the door. And so I left Page Menino in 2012 and started my own law firm, and really enjoyed that part of my legal career as well. And we did that for a few years, and of course that's when the judgeship came available, and Governor Bryant appointed me to that.
Let's talk about the Senate for a second. You followed Billy Hughes, who had been in that position for a number of years, and had him on the show this week, and he's been on Coast View several times, obviously representing the city of Gulfport. But he often talks about how the Senate really enabled him to be a better mayor. In fact, he talked about running for lieutenant governor, and even though he did not win, meeting people across the state, understanding how the coast fits in, and developing these amazing relationships after having served for so many years in the Senate. It really helped him be a really much better mayor. And I get that. I get that completely. What was it like to follow Billy?
I'm a little bit bigger stature than Billy. I'm 6'2", but I would always tell him, I said, my feet might be bigger than yours, but I don't know if I can fill your shoes. And so it was tough to follow up him. I mean, he had just finished up as pro tem of the Senate. He was very influential, had a lot of friends, but he was also a great resource and extremely supportive of me getting up there, making sure that I knew the ins and outs as best could be explained in relationships. And so I think it was a benefit for me, definitely, to be following behind him, and especially he and I having a good relationship. And then what I did learn, though, is that everybody's got different styles. And people that expected me to be like Billy probably were disappointed. I wasn't. I certainly had my own style. And so, fast forward 6 years later when Joel Carter came in, Senator Carter, I knew that I needed to let him have his own style, and I couldn't tell him how to do certain things. I just offer guidance and advice like Billy would do for me, and then you got to blaze your own path. And so I mean,
listen. I bet you had no thought that the Mississippi Court of Appeals position was going to open up. I mean, you probably thought, well, heck, man, I'm going to continue to have my own law firm, and I'll be a senator for the next 20 years. Yeah. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
I did. And look, it was, I loved I love being a senator. I mean, it was really kind of right up my alley. I mean, I think it fit my personality, building relationships, working with other, finding compromise. I think if you talk to any of the senators, they would tell you that I was always honest with them, and I was always willing to work with anybody and try to find a good compromise to any disputes that we were having, and ultimately get a good piece of legislation passed. So I mean, I was fully happy to be there. I can tell you that having 4 kids at home, being a senator, having a real estate business, I think I might have gotten a little overwhelmed at certain times. So when the opportunity to be on the Court of Appeals came along, I talked to my wife and I said, this was really a chance for me maybe to spend more time and focus on being a better father and a better husband, not being spread all over, because, I was gotten to where I was working from 7 in the morning till, 8 or 9 at night when I got home, just trying to get caught up from a 90-day legislative session. So it kind of got to where I was going to have to make some choices. Again, what's important? Money, influence, or your family. And I just looked at it like, at the end of the day, the most important legacy I'll have will be the 4 kids that are here long after I'm gone. So
I feel the same way about my kids, but I think for people who haven't taken the time to think about it, they hear sort of this name senator and they think gravitas and they think, a person of stature and whatever. They don't normally think about the sacrifice that you make, that you still got a day job that you have to do. You have to pay bills and feed your family and support your family. And during the session, man, I mean it can be brutal because you're commuting to Jackson. Committee meetings, it can be any wild time. You got people visiting you in Jackson, and opportunities to do some camaraderie. You have special sessions that get called. I mean, it can be literally brutal on a family, can it?
It's a major sacrifice, and especially for those that are coming from the coast or those that are coming from North Mississippi and they're 2.5, 3 hours away from their family, because it's you're gone, and you can't tend to business matters like you can if you're a senator from the Metro Jackson area. So it's a different sort of sacrifice. And but I will say this, and it's so important that we send good qualified people up there from the coast to represent us. I think we've got a good coastal delegation. Whenever there's an opening, I encourage young people or anybody that's engaged in their community that wants to be involved to look at running for one of those positions, because we need strong representation.
Yeah, we've talked, Billy Hughes talks about One Coast. One of the first things I did when I became publisher of the Sun Herald is launch what we call the South Mississippi Strategy. Roland Weeks was my mentor. I had an opportunity to work with him, and he always preached to me, and I always led this way, that we are a collection of communities. The diversity in those communities is what makes coastal Mississippi such a special place. And each community has its own personality and whatever. But on common issues, we have to come together. And, for example, I've been watching mayors and leadership of the coast work together to fight COVID. COVID's a common enemy. On the BP money, coming together on issues that are important to coastal Mississippi. That when we come together, and you know this from your time in the Senate, when we come together, when our leadership is together, both the private and the public sector, we can usually get the attention we need to accomplish the goals we have. But when we're divided, they don't have to pay attention to us because we end up nullifying each other's voices. That's true, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And look at what the Golden Triangle, which is the area around Starkville, what they've been able to accomplish, because they come together with a common mission to promote their region. Same thing with the Delta Council. They come together with a mission to promote their region. They don't get caught up in, well, you got better streetlights than I do. They're looking more towards the common good. And so I 100% and have seen it. When we do come together with a common mission, common goal, I think we're batting 1,000.
Yeah.
But when we get divided, the rest of the state loves it because they can take everything we want right out from underneath us. So.
It's interesting. When I was in Mobile, it was same kind of issues. Coastal Alabama needed to come together on common issues. When I was in New Orleans constantly working to bring the attention there the way they needed to. In Alabama, Huntsville. My goodness, the work that they've done to build Huntsville and the base there, and the work that they're doing there with NASA and all the high tech and whatever, it's just incredible. When they do a fly-in, to Washington, D.C., they have 150 people go. I mean, they do not mess around. Well, that's, those are all best practices. Coastal Mississippi has a lot of best practices that we've used over the years, but I think it's always important to remember that we're better when we find our one voice on common issues, and we're not better when we don't. That's just kind of the bottom line to that. So we're getting close to the end of this segment, but what I want to do when we come back is spend just a couple of minutes talking about the Mississippi Court of Appeals. What is it? And was it what you expected it to be? And did it give you the opportunity to spend more time with your family? And then we'll shift gears and begin to talk about your new role and maybe what you have in mind there as well. So this is Sean Tyndall, the Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner, and we'll be back after this break.
SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse@telesouth.com. That's JESSE@telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
Good afternoon. It's Wednesday about 4 p.m. I'm Fofo Gillich, Mayor of Biloxi. Today's message is about the situation we find ourselves in regarding COVID-19. In previous messages, before the Memorial Day reopening, we were reporting a 14-day average new case numbers that were about 5 or 6 per day in Harrison County. Today, it's about 5 times those numbers. The virus is for real. It's getting closer to home each day. For many of us, it's at our doorstep. We can't afford to take a step backwards at this point in our recovery. I'm asking you, just like everyone you've heard from, Washington to Jackson, do your part to protect yourself, your family, your friends, and everyone in the community. I believe what is said, handle a problem or it will handle you. We've all been guilty of not being all in or careless when it comes to stopping this thing. Please, let's all take the personal responsibility that's needed. Be prepared. Wash your hands frequently. Keep your distance. Stay 6 foot away from others. Avoid crowds. All leading authorities are recommending that you wear face covering when in the public, and especially when you have to be in close contact with others. Wear it the right way. Cover your nose and your mouth at the same time. It's not an infringement of your rights. It's to protect others, especially our most vulnerable.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
We give HPV vaccine to children at 11 or 12 years of age. I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and I've given the vaccine to all of them.
If a muckety muck wants you to hear what they gotta say, they come here first and sit down with Gallo and JT. This is ground zero for all Mississippi muckety mucks. SuperTalk Mississippi. Watch your favorite SuperTalk shows in HD. Just go to supertalktv.com. Ever wonder what goes on in the studio during the shows? Now you can watch what happens in HD. SuperTalk TV, streaming now on supertalktv.com.
What would happen if if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors, what would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
It's me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter. Has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because I was a boxer / I worked in a furniture factory / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant / I was in the National Guard, and all this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90 Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now.
He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Sean Tyndall with us today, who is the Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner, and he's been in that role for about 6 weeks, and with terrific conversation, just kind of retracing his steps along the way. One of the things that's really clear to me, Sean, you and I talked a little bit about this offline, but when you pay attention to where opportunities may come and you put yourself in a position to take advantage of these sort of trajectory moments, these moments in your life that literally change the trajectory of your life, you've had one after another ones of those. I mean, you didn't expect to be a senator. You didn't expect to get on the Mississippi Court of Appeals. You certainly didn't expect to be in the current role that you're in. But every time you were preparing yourself for whatever might come next, it's sort of like that for you, isn't it?
It has been. And like we were talking about, I mean, any position I've ever held or job I've done, I've never done it looking towards what I was going to gain from it, what was going to be my next step. I've just tried to work hard, put my head down, do a good job where I am, and when opportunities come along, like we've talked about, seize those opportunities. There might be an assignment that nobody wants, and I'll raise my hand and take it because, hey, I want to look at it as an opportunity to do something different and network, and so that's just kind of been the way it's gone, and I've never. Even now, people say, well, what are you going to run for next? What are you going to do next? I know you want to do something. I'm like, no, I've got one job to do, and that's to make the Department of Public Safety better. And if I do a good job at that, we'll see what opportunities come. If not, I'll have to retire to my farm, I guess.
So tell me about the Mississippi Court of Appeals. For people who don't know what that does, tell me what that does.
Well, the Mississippi Court of Appeals is the intermediate court in Mississippi that hears appeals from circuit courts, chancery courts, county courts, your Workman's Comp Commission, other commissions, and it'll come to the Court of Appeals before it goes to the Mississippi Supreme Court. And so it's a lot of reading and a lot of writing, and it's a great time to sit and pontificate upon the law and try to take any wisdom that I've gained over the last 19 years and put it into that role. And so it was an interesting position to be in. I learned a whole lot while I was there. So
I often say that life's a journey, that the more we learn, the more we better learn how much we don't know. That that actually, growing up and gaining wisdom, part of that wisdom is to learn. Holy mackerel, there's so much more to learn. I mean, it really keeps you humble, doesn't it?
It does. And look, I feel like when I was practicing law, I had a very broad practice. I practiced in every court in the state. I represented cities, and I did divorce cases, and I would do criminal law. And then, when I first got to the Court of Appeals, one of the first cases they handed me was a workman's compensation claim. And I've never done a workman's comp case in my life. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out how that entire process works. So it's like my grandfather told me, my papa, the day you stop learning is the day you die.
I can't agree more. I can't agree more. So did it really enable you to get reconnected with your family the way you had hoped?
It did. I mean, I still had to be in Jackson, so it took me away from my family. But when I was home, I was really able to concentrate on them, and we spent a lot of good quality time together during that time period, and we still are. It was really beneficial to kind of put down the law practice, put down some of the business stuff, and focus on those young kids and my wife.
So let's do this. Let's shift gears now. You get a call that says, Tate Reeves would like to consider you for Commissioner of Public Safety. So what went through your mind then?
I mean, I'll just be perfectly honest with you. The first words out of my mouth and the first thought that I had was, "You're joking, right? This is a big joke. Y'all are kidding." Because I wasn't expecting that phone call. It certainly wasn't anything I'd been asking for or even really had contemplated. And the response was, "No, we're very serious. We think you would do a good job." At the time, I'd been working on the committee to help find a new commissioner for the Department of Corrections. And I think once they saw kind of the role that I had taken on in doing that and the work that I was doing, and knowing my history from the Senate, they felt like that I could do a good job here. And so I told them I'd have to talk to my wife and talk to my mother, and we'd have to, kind of make a family decision about it. And that's what we did. I sat down with my wife, and we had several conversations about it, and she's always been just so supportive of me doing these things. And so ultimately the decision was to move forward.
What's interesting about it, Sean, it really is a twist in the road for you, another opportunity to learn, but it will increase your name recognition across the state if you do a good job. Of course, some people you can never do a good enough job. You know how that works.
That's true. That's true.
I sent a note to a friend of mine this morning. I said, well, your friends, your friends want you to, your great friends want something. Your enemies also want something. But most people are somewhere in the middle. Most people, but those ends are pretty loud at times, very loud. But you've got a lot of. I mean, this is a very challenging time in our history because of the COVID situation. It's it probably. I mean, obviously, it's a big enough job by itself, but you add COVID in, and it just makes it just exponentially more complicated. Tell me about how you factor all that in.
Well, and so when I started in June, we were kind of coming out of everything. Things were a little relaxed, and we've seen a little bit of a spike. I can tell you that we've had one of our driver's license service stations in Natchez. We've had a couple people that have gotten sick and tested positive, so we've had to close that station down while we clean it and restaff. And so the concern's very real, and it's part of the reason why we instituted the policy that you had to wear a mask inside of all driver's license service stations. And it's not just to protect the people that work there or to protect those that are coming in. I mean, the reality is I don't think we can afford to have another 10-week shutdown. So whatever we can do to keep those driver's license service stations open, just like whatever we can do to keep our businesses open. Look, it's an inconvenience to wear a mask, but for now, if it keeps businesses open, if it keeps driver's license service stations opened, that's got to be a priority. And so that's kind of the approach that we took to it is if it can help keep them open, that's what we got to do, because we can't afford another 10-week shutdown and another backlog of driver's license problems.
Johnny Polis has been on the show a couple of times, and one of the things he appeals, and I'll just take this opportunity to say this, is that when people are not driving carefully, when they're out speeding and they have unnecessary wrecks, what that is doing is it's forcing first responders to be pulled into a scenario where they won't be able to practice social distancing, et cetera. And it just constantly appealing to people to pay close attention when you're driving, do the speed limit, don't create unnecessary wrecks and other situations that cause highway patrolmen and other first responders to have to get pulled in. That's a really important message, isn't it?
It is. And it's kind of what makes this country great. We all have to do our part. And it's, look, I don't know if masks work, if they don't work, but I know this, they can't hurt. So, let's try it and let's try to keep these businesses open. Let's try to all do our part to make sure that those are safe. And so that was our approach with it. We are the Department of Public Safety and we play a vital role. And if everybody up here gets sick with COVID, then we don't have people at work, and then Mississippians are more vulnerable. And so it's just something that we've got to manage. People are going to get it. We know that, but we've got to manage it and just make sure that we can still provide the services that we have to. And I can tell you, along with the COVID, of course, the first week I started is when we started seeing the protests pick up. And so we were having to deal with all that, and, marches and possible riots. And I'm so proud of the way our agency played a role in not only protecting our communities during those protests, but also making sure that those that were protesting, their First Amendment constitutional rights were also preserved.
Yeah.
I think it's, de-escalation techniques that we use, providing water, talking to them, engaging, certainly paid off in the end. And look, at the end of the day, we can't even take all the credit. I think one of the great things about Mississippi that we don't get a lot of credit for is we're very integrated. We spend a lot of time together. I'll always remember talking to some people from New York, and we were talking about race relations. And this was when I was 18 years old. And I said, well, how many black people do you have in your school? And they told me 4. And I said, well, you're talking to me about it and talking down to me from Mississippi. I went to a high school at Gulfport High that was 50% black, 50% white. And so I think I've, got a much better relationship with the minorities in my community than you probably have with yours. So
yeah, it is good. It is, just kind of a side note here, but it is good that the vast majority of the protests in Mississippi were peaceful, even in the flag debate discussion, both inside the Senate and outside inside the legislature, outside the legislature. Protests were peaceful. The debates were respectful. We've come a long way as a state, and we've got a lot to be thankful for, don't we?
We do. And I can tell you, I know we only got a few seconds left here, but it was a beautiful picture that I saw. One of our agents took a picture after the flag vote. One of the people in support of the flag came over and shook the hands of one of the people that were supporting changing it.
Yeah.
And one of them had, the Stennis flag. One of them had the Mississippi flag, and they came together and shook hands. And man, I say that ought to be the national story.
I know. I agree. I agree. But as Haley Barber says, they don't like to cover stories when planes land safely. Hey, we're going to continue in the next segment if you've got time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is Sean Tyndall. He's the new commissioner, public safety commissioner, and we'll be back after this break.
Be sure to go by this station's website and check out the half-off deals. Audubon Zoo tickets for just $15. That's half price. $30 zoo tickets for just $15. Again, go to this station's website or Facebook. Look for the half-off deals logo to purchase yours now.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk Mississippi.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it. So do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to touch frequently touched surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fm.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors. Here, the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is House Call for Health. Medical researchers spend years developing drugs to treat cancer, but it's possible the next big cancer-fighting breakthrough could already be in your medicine cabinet. Scientists have long known that a drug for one ailment can sometimes be effective in treating something else. Aspirin is the most famous example. Researchers at Harvard, MIT, and the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute tested more than 4,500 existing medications. They found 48 drugs that killed at least some cancer cells. These drugs are for several different conditions, including diabetes, inflammation, and alcoholism. One drug is used for treating arthritis in dogs. Researchers in the journal Nature Cancer said the medications sometimes worked in different ways than mainstream cancer drugs. Now they hope these drugs can be further developed into true new weapons against cancer. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
Everyone knows the only thing better than pizza is free pizza, and right now, buy a $10 gift certificate to CiCi's Pizza for only $5. It's like buying a pizza and getting a pizza for free. Go to our station's website or Facebook. Look for the Half Off Deals logo to purchase this amazing deal right now.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Sean Tyndall with us today. He's the new commissioner and the head of the Department of Public Safety in Mississippi. He's the Public Safety Commissioner. There's got a bunch of different components to it. So one of the things I want to know, Sean, so now that you're moving into this new role, you started officially June the 1st. What's the first thing you do? I mean, there's so much to get your head around.
So right after the governor made the announcement, which was, I think, May 20th, the next day I showed up at about 7:45 and walked in the door, even though I hadn't started yet, and just kind of wanted to make my way around and see what was going on at the headquarters here at the Department of Public Safety. And I think I surprised a lot of people that didn't really even know who I was until somebody said, "Hey, you're the new commissioner." So I just showed up early the next day and started meeting everybody. And I can tell you, even before June 1st, I took that week ahead and I met with all the division heads for each of those divisions that you mentioned earlier: driver's license services, Bureau of Narcotics, Homeland Security, Mississippi Bureau of Investigation. And I wanted to meet with the heads of all the different divisions. And so that's what we did that first week, kind of get an assessment of where they were, what they needed, and just kind of get to know the directors of each of those divisions. And then coming into it on June 1st, of course, the legislators were still in session, which is a little bit unusual. So started meeting with them about our budget. And one of the great conversations I had, and you and I've talked about it a little bit, meeting with Lieutenant Governor Hoseman, he said, "Sean, just remember," he learned at the Notre Dame Business School, the rule of 8, that about the most you can effectively manage is a team of 8 people, and then you got to let them go out and manage 8, and then they got to manage 8, and then the organization will start to run itself. And so that really got me thinking about, hey, who's my leadership team going to be? Because I got to get some help in here, and I'm going to give them some roles so that I can be more effective as the head of the department. So and I can tell you that was the governor's vision as well. So
tell me about it. Tell me about your team.
Well, I'm really excited. We made an announcement last week. I was Secretary Watson's probably still mad at me. I invited him over for dinner, and while he was there, I mentioned to him, by the way, do you mind if your chief of staff comes and works for me at the Department of Public Safety? And he kind of stared at me, and I think in his heart is like mine, that if anybody's with them, and they can better themselves or have something they want to go do, he encourages them to do that. So he begrudgingly said, yes, of course, you can talk to Keith Davis. And so we got Keith Davis to come on as our Deputy Commissioner of Operations. And he's one of the things that he's helping oversee is driver's license services, and he's been just excellent in that role. He's also a former narcotics agent, so he's helping us oversee MBN as well as Homeland Security, and so he's been just a great asset. There's a guy named Stephen McDevitt. He married a girl from Gulfport, a girl named Kristen McDevitt, and they live up here in Jackson now, but he's a former investigator from the auditor's office, CPA, and he's the Deputy Commissioner of Finance. So he's kind of helping us run the ins and outs of the day-to-day operation. And, our budget's between general funds and special funds, about a $200 million budget. And so it's over 1,100 employees. And so you got to have somebody watching the pennies if you're going to make it run right. I'm always reminded of what Senator Polk told me, who's been a big mentor of mine, John Polk out of Hattiesburg, that if you watch the pennies, the dollars will follow. And so that's kind of why we brought Stephen in. I've got a chief of staff, Mandy Davis, who came from the Speaker's office, was at the Treasury before that. She's been excellent. Of course, we named our new Colonel, Randy Ginn, who's been 30 years of law enforcement experience on the Mississippi Highway Patrol. And the last person that two more actually, we brought in not Stephen McDevitt, but Mac May, who's our general counsel. Has a background in personnel, came from the Attorney General's office. Attorney General Fitch was not happy with me when I called and said, hey, would it be okay if I talked to Mag May about being our chief counsel? She said that he was one of her shining stars and did not want to lose him. Same thing with Stephen McDevitt. He was at the Department of Finance, and the head of that agency wasn't too happy when I stole him away. And so, those have been some great hires. And somebody that I'm really excited about is Deputy Commissioner of External Affairs, Captain Charles Haynes. He's working on his doctorate, very, very smart guy. He's been doing governmental relations for the Highway Patrol over at the Capitol for the last 6 or 7 years, and is going to be working with me as we travel around the state, meeting with sheriffs, police departments, DAs, judges, just trying to let everybody know what we can do to help them from the Department of Public Safety aspect. And so that's kind of our team, and it's been really good to get all those folks around me.
Man, that's an incredible success story in the short time you've been there. That's a lot of moving parts in that short time. I congratulate you on your leadership and being able to pull that together so quickly. Hey, we only got a minute or so left, but what do you want people to say of you 6 years from now?
Well, I want, from the inside, I want everybody at the Department of Public Safety, particularly the troopers and the law enforcement agents at MBN and MBI, to know that, I did everything I could to make sure that they had the resources they needed to protect Mississippians and to do their job as best they can. From the outside, I want people to look at it and say the Department of Public Safety is run efficiently, maximize our tax dollars, and cut some of the waste that they have, but have not cut any services, and in fact made the services better, particularly as it pertains to driver's license services. Well, I will make that an experience where people get what they need and they get it quickly.
Sean Tyndall, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you this morning. I really have appreciated you taking so much time. But I think that people who watch this will see that you're a humble guy who's worked really hard in every step along the way to be the best you could be, and you're going to be a great commissioner. So good luck to you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity.
You bet, buddy. Take care.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast View on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to supertalkmsgulfcoast.com.